Is there anything more important than happiness? This is essentially the question Aldous Huxley asked in his awe-inspiring book, Brave New World, written in 1931, almost 100 years ago. The relevance this book holds in the 21st century is astounding, and this is exactly what we will be exploring in today's video. First of all, thank you for clicking on this video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. It really helps the channel grow. Enjoy the video. Okay, so here is a short summary of Brave New World. Feel free to skip to this time if you want to go straight to the analysis. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley presents a vision of a future where stability and efficiency are achieved through genetic engineering, social conditioning, and the use of a drug called soma. Society is divided into castes, from the intelligent alphas to the menial epsilons, with each group conditioned to accept their roles without question. Individuality, family, and free will are sacrificed for the collective harmony and productivity. The story follows Bernard Marx, a alpha who feels alienated due to his physical and social differences. Bernard visits the savage reservation with Lenina, a beta who embodies societal conformity. They discover John, who was raised with traditional values and influenced by Shakespeare. Bernard brings John to London, where his emotions and ideals clash with the shallow happiness of the world state. John becomes a celebrity, but grows increasingly disillusioned with the society's lack of depth, meaning, and humanity. His confrontation with Mustafa Mond, a world controller, reveals the sacrifices made for stability, including the loss of truth, art, and individuality. John, unable to reconcile his beliefs with the world state, retreats, leading to a tragic end. Brave New World and 1984 are in a league of their own. These two books are the yin and yang of the political and philosophical debate on how to structure society. They both present dystopian worlds that reach similar outcomes, but through completely opposite means. In 1984, the dystopia arises from too much control and a lack of freedom. On the other hand, Brave New World depicts a dystopia where there is too much indulgence and freedom, leading to societal decay. In terms of what political views each story depicts, I would say that Brave New World would better reflect flaws of a liberal democracy, while 1984 illustrates the dangers of tyrannical governments. When a political ideology is driven to its extreme, it's often hard to distinguish between them. For example, Hitler's party was often called the National Socialist Germans Workers' Party, even though he was a fascist. I think it was Zizek who said, "The only difference between communism and fascism is that when a communist crowd is clapping, the leader will stand up and clap with the people, community. Whereas in a fascist crowd, the leader will not clap with the people." George Orwell was a socialist who wrote extensively about politics. Huxley critiqued politics, but not as much as Orwell, and his writings leaned more towards sociology. But overall, Huxley's personal views are more decentralized and communitarian. Decentralized refers to a system where decision-making and power are distributed among smaller independent entities rather than a central authority. And communitarianism is a philosophy that values community, well-being, and mutual support. Now, let's go through the first few chapters of this story. The novel begins with a tour of the Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Centre, where humans are artificially created and conditioned. The director shows students how people are genetically engineered into specific social classes, alpha, beta, gamma, etc., with lower castes conditioned to be subservient. Newborns are conditioned through techniques to fit their roles. Society also uses soma, a drug that keeps people happy and prevents dissatisfaction. This introduces a world where individuality is sacrificed for stability and social harmony. So how can we draw parallels from this to our present time? In Brave New World, people are made on a conveyor belt, and their god is Ford, the inventor of the conveyor belt, and presumably the Ford car guy. They prioritize stability and efficiency above all else, which is why they made Ford their god. This can be seen in today's world, where productivity is prized above all else. We are often called the burnout generation or burnout society, because if we are not busy and productive, we feel like we are committing a great sin. Secondly, they are all categorized into castes, not classes: alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and epsilon. Huxley made sure to distinguish between class and caste. The reason I believe he did this is because Brave New World is set in a liberal-leaning society with more socialist and communist tendencies. Socialism and communism broadly advocates for the abolition of classes. Now, these are groups of people defined by income level and other factors relating to quality of living. In Brave New World, castes are not used in the same way as classes. While people are still divided into groups based on the type of work they do, ranging from hard labor to menial jobs to more cognitively intensive tasks, this division is based on their level of competence rather than their socio-economic status. This is interesting because the central theme of Brave New World is achieving maximum stability and efficiency, which requires people to be divided into groups. I personally think that this constant tribalism or group categorization in society might reflect the natural order of efficiency and stability and even long-term survival. The idea aligns with Plato's concept in the book The Republic. Plato's class system is based on the myth of metals, dividing people into three classes: gold, the rulers and the wise; silver, guardians and warriors; and bronze, which are the producers skilled in trade and labor. Each metal reflects a person's innate nature and ability, determining their role in society. The other thing is that the conditioning programs in Brave New World make people predetermined. They use techniques like chemical treatments, oxygen deprivation. This ensures physical and mental differences between castes. After birth, psychological conditioning such as sleep teaching or hypnopedia reinforces their acceptance of their societal roles, ensuring stability and control. They are set up for their lives ahead of them, and this simply makes them predetermined. When the state makes citizens predetermined, we see it as a bad thing and we scoff at the idea. But we too are predetermined, though it is just not that obvious. We can't help the environment we are born into. We don't choose our intellect, and frankly, we don't choose anything else. So we too are divided into these predetermined cognitive groups. But the state just didn't have a hand in it. Rather, it was Mother Nature herself. But if you believe in free will, just forget the last few sentences I said. Another unsettling aspect of Brave New World is the sexualization of children. The treatment of children as sexual beings reflects broader societal conditioning. This idea has roots in the work of William Reich, a 20th century psychoanalyst, who argued that children possess inherent sexuality that should develop freely as part of their authentic selves. I think something similar was said by John Money. But in any case, in the same way, sexual freedom was of cardinal importance. These are the ideas of hedonism and indulgence. All the orgies and sexual freedom emphasizes community. This ideal of interconnectedness and that there is no single individual, but rather everyone belongs to everyone. The concept of family is another striking theme. In Brave New World, the idea of family is taboo. The notion of having a biological father or mother, or rather not being created in the state's hatching facilities, is deeply unsettling to the citizens. We can see this by how they react to John the Savage and the idea of having a mother and a father. This idea reflects Marxist views of the family. Marx saw the family as a social construct tied to the economic system, and this helped capitalism perpetuate inequality. Marx believed that capitalism alienated individuals from authentic relationships, turning families into economic units rather than spaces of genuine connections. In a communist society, he envisioned communal child rearing. This is exactly what we see in Brave New World, thus one of the cornerstones of the Brave New World society. This is again the idea that everyone belongs to everyone. Similarly, Plato also proposed abolishing private families in favor of state-controlled reproduction and collective child rearing. The thought behind this was to eliminate nepotism and promote societal harmony. But like Brave New World, it all boils down to abolishing the individual. This will help the community work as one entity. Now, like 1984, Brave New World also has these mantras that people live by. 1984 has these sayings of freedom is slavery and war is peace and so on. But Brave New World uses the slogan of community, identity, and stability. Now, you see, the slogan in 1984 are built on paradoxes that force citizens to believe in these incompatible ideas. The key word here is forced, meaning that they know they are being oppressed, while the mantra of Brave New World is a bit more subtle. It is more in the line of light persuasion. You see, the thing is, people in Brave New World do not know they are being oppressed because they are genetically engineered into obedience. They don't know any better. There is a saying that says, the best way to keep a prisoner captive is to convince him that he is free. Another thing that was quite prevalent in today's society, paralleled with Brave New World slogan, is the term identity. And now you think, but they don't have any identity. They are what the state tells them they are. You see, the term identity does not refer to individual identity. It refers to group identity. The group you are in will determine who you are. It's detrimental that you belong to a group, and even more important that you take on that group's beliefs. This is exactly what is happening in today's society. In the 21st century, the world has never been so divided. Before any human interaction, we first must know what group you are in, and this will determine how we move forward with you. Take, for example, people in today's age of social media think it's altruistic and revolutionary to put their beliefs on social media, like the black square or the Ukrainian flag. That's not at all what this act symbolizes. In fact, it's a very selfish act because it doesn't symbolize what you think it symbolizes at all. It just symbolizes allegiance to a group and what that group's morals are. Remember, the group is an ideology concerned with its own spread and growth. It uses moral blackmail to recruit its members. So when you don't utter the mantra or post the flag, you are immediately asked, so I guess you support the war or you support the genocide. This is used to recruit outsiders to utter your group's rhetoric. This is seen when Lenina is questioned by friends when she starts to critique monogamy. She is threatened with being ostracized out of the group, just like Hitler did, and Stalin, and the Kim dynasty. You are threatened by ostracization if you do not sing the song of the group. Okay, so the story goes, they show us how kids are made. They show us that there are a bunch of orgies and that everyone belongs to everyone. They have met John the Savage and showed how society sees traditional values. But one thing we haven't touched on, and arguably one of the most popular subjects, is that of soma. In Brave New World, they use soma as a relief from basically anything that is not pleasure. For any pain or anxiety, they use soma. It is against society's norm to experience anything that is not pleasure. And that is where the question comes in. Is there anything more important than happiness? Well, I don't know. It's a personal question, I guess. Some philosophies, such as hedonism, are dedicated just to this idea. It says that this is the true purpose of life. It might very well be, because if we take an overview of human history, every action we have taken was to move humanity forward towards less suffering. Although this is true, it is still not the same as saying that happiness is the most important thing. Robert Nozick, I'm sure I butchered that surname, had a thought experiment called the experience machine. Nozick proposed the idea in his book Anarchy, State and Utopia to argue against hedonism, the idea that pleasure is the highest good. In the thought experiment, participants are asked if they would plug into a machine that could give them any experience or pleasure they desired, indistinguishable from reality. Most people rejected the idea, valuing authentic experiences, real connections, and autonomy over artificial pleasure. Now, why is this? Why would we essentially welcome suffering? Or rather, why are we so reluctant to just do away with it? Why not just take soma all day, every day? I think Dostoevsky said it best in the book Notes from Underground. Man is sometimes extraordinarily, passionately in love with suffering, and that is a fact. And we can see this in John the Savage, when the traditional man comes face to face with too much comfort in a reality that values stability, identity, and community rather than authenticity. And that is when John screams, "But I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin." And that is what a man's soul yearns for. And in the end, John could not take on this new reality of his. He needed suffering, otherwise he had no other purpose, and thus he had to end his life. Because it is better to be dead than to live in a world filled with comfort. It's an odd question, this one of happiness, because as humans, we are essentially evolutionary set to seek out problems to solve. Happiness is the end goal, but it does not mean that it is sufficient as a standalone. We need the process to go along with it. And only when happiness is accommodated with the process of struggle and suffering, only then will we be happy with happiness. For example, Blaise Pascal brought up something similar that emphasized this point. I'll take the example of gambling, seeing that this is the most popular example used. Now, Pascal says, let's give this man all the money he could have won, on the condition that he can't play anymore. So what does the man say? Well, he declares himself unhappy. Why? Because he doesn't just want to win the money. He wants to play the game. Pascal then says, allow him to play the game, but then guarantee him that he won't win any money. And this will also make him unhappy. So what is it that people want? It seems they need something beyond simply having the desired thing. They need the illusion that achieving something will make them happy. But because having it alone won't actually bring them happiness, they also need not to have it. So what do people do? They seek out the game without the prize in hopes of, let's say, earning the prize. I think Alex O'Connor made this point by saying that this is why religion works so well. Religion is something you don't have, something you won't have for your entire life, yet you believe you can have it, and this makes it desirable. The same can be said about capitalism, or rather the skeptics will make this point, where you can always work yourself into a better position for a better standard of living. All you need is hard work. But the anti-capitalist would say this is just a false ideal to keep people hopeful and trapped within a capitalist system so that they will remain passive and won't rise up in revolution. But in any case, this type of formula of process plus outcome equals happiness can be found in many systems, as just pointed out with capitalism. And this is also the equation pointed out in Brave New World. This is a fundamental rule of life. And the book depicts what would happen if we seek the outcome without the process. And at no point is it really clear that Brave New World is, let's say, a dystopia. There isn't any war. People that are brought up by the state are generally happy most of the time. And they have enough to eat, they have shelter, and they have, to my knowledge, free healthcare. It's not this post-apocalyptic world that we often see in sci-fi movies. It's not your classical dystopian world. Like I said, I think Brave New World showcases an ideal liberal democracy. We can draw almost perfect parallels to today's modern age. And you might say, but we have everything, but we don't have soma. This euphoria pill. Oh, really? We've almost reached a point where there's a pill or drug for anything. However, our modern day soma isn't a pill at all. It's our phones, or rather, the alternative reality they create, this meta-reality. These serve as our escape from reality, providing that dopamine kick we crave to keep going. In many ways, they are the soma of our time. It might just be a matter of time before we find ourselves in Huxley's novel. I'll leave you with this question. If you read Brave New World, are you happy with where we are heading? Would you want to live in such a world? Because the Western world is certainly aiming for Huxley's Brave New World. To quote Shakespeare, "Oh wonder, how many goodly creatures are there? How beauteous mankind is. Oh brave new world that has such people in it."